Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. Today's topic is particularly important, and it's been a long time coming. Ahead of tomorrow's new summon showcase, I want to talk about the math behind summoning and the gacha system in Dragalia Lost, and the smart decisions you can make to play around that. But before getting into the topic at hand, let me just mention the recent announcement of the game's next update, and a roadmap of what's ahead by the game's director. If you haven't seen this already, I'll post a link below, and you can also check the notice board in-game. To put it simply, the changes coming are bonkers, and all in players' favor. I'm absolutely floored by the attention to player feedback, and I'll try to provide my full thoughts in a video dedicated to that later today. With that aside out of the way, let's talk summoning. So why is a video like this important? Well, here's my take. Randomness is a factor with any gacha game. Dragalia Lost is no exception, even if, thankfully, it's possible to clear all in-game content without summoning at all. I can't defend the business of gacha as a whole, since it's true. It can hurt people with a predisposition to gamble. But if you're going to summon, you should at least do so efficiently with realistic goals, and this video should help with that. For a few disclaimers, I'll specifically be talking about Dragalia Lost and going off the rate precedents set so far. A lot of my philosophy on gacha has been shaped by Fire Emblem Heroes though, so I'll link to two of my favorite creators in the description below, Medakite and Acarus, both of whom do amazing work showcasing how to manage, save, and spend orbs wisely, but with vastly different goals in mind. I'll also add one remark about fun. You should ultimately do you and decide for yourself what lets you have the most fun in this game. Sometimes you just want to summon even if you know you shouldn't, and while I'd advise against that, I can't really fault you for it. But even if your target is, say, your favorite unit rather than something strategic, I still think the tips in this video will help you achieve your goals. For one last bit of preamble, I want to comment on a trend I've heard of where people buy Diamantium for cheap from third-party resellers. To be blunt, this is extremely sketchy, and I would strongly advise against doing it. It can put your login information at risk. These resellers often use stolen credit cards, it strips revenue from the game's developers, and you will very possibly be banned for doing so. If you're knowingly participating in this, or worse, promoting this despite knowing better, please just stop. No amount of bad rates justify theft, and as we'll see, the rates in Dragalia Lost aren't even that bad. Anyway, let's start with some basic info about summoning in Dragalia Lost. I'm joined today by Nicholas and Zania, who will help explain some of the concepts we'll be looking at, and look downright adorable to boot. To begin, summoning always takes place on a showcase, which I'll interchange with the term banner. The summoning pool in Dragalia Lost consists of characters, dragons, and worm prints, and each new showcase introduces new units in each category, which have a heightened chance of being summoned for the showcase duration. Showcases may also increase the rate of other units, even those which aren't brand new to the game. A typical showcase lasts around 2 weeks, and afterwards, units are added to the normal summoning pool, with the exception of seasonal showcases like Halloween Fantasia. Adventurers, dragons, and worm prints with that heightened chance of being summoned are called featured or focused units. With a slight exception on the game's first banner, the pattern for focused units so far has always been as follows: 1 5-star adventurer, 1 5-star dragon, and 2 5-star worm prints. Then the exact same categories, just at 4-star instead, and finally 1 3-star adventurer and 1 3-star worm print. For example, you can see this pattern on the latest showcase, the Desert Jewel and the Abyssal Flame. And the slight exception on the game's first banner was fairly minor. There were no 3-star focus units at all. In terms of summoning itself, there are 3 ways to do so: daily deal, single summon, and tenfold summon. To note, the daily deal can only be done with paid currency, Diamantium, and vouchers exist for both single summons and tenfold summons. Otherwise, it's also notable that tenfold summons guarantee a 4-star or above as the 10th and final pull, and therefore you should always try to save up for these. I'll talk about how to utilize the daily deal and single summon vouchers optimally a bit later. Now let's move on to your actual chances of summoning different things. The table shows the base percent chance you get a certain type of pull for single summons, daily deals, and the first 9 draws of a tenfold. I'm not going to cover every little detail, but here are a few things I'd like to point out. First of all, on any given summon, you're most likely to get a 3-star. This will happen around 80% of the time. By category, you'll most commonly pull an adventurer, roughly 40% of the time, but worm prints are very close at 37%. And on that topic, since worm prints are commonly bemoaned, as you can see at 5-star, they have twice the chance of being pulled compared to adventurers or dragons. So it isn't just you. Worm prints are indeed the most common type of 5-star, but there is a caveat to this. Each individual 5-star focused worm print has a 0.5% chance, just like each individual focus adventurer and dragon does. So the reason worm prints appear with double the frequency is a quantity issue. Since there are 2 on focus at 5-star versus just 1 focus adventurer and dragon, you're more likely to get one of the 2, even if each specific one is rare. From there, let's look at the final draw on a tenfold summon, where a 4-star or above is guaranteed. The main thing to say here is that this does nothing to increase your odds of a 5-star on that draw. All of the 80 percentage points that were previously assigned to 3 stars get shifted to 4 stars, and 5-star odds are unchanged. Even though the game sometimes does a visual trick where a 4-star becomes a 5-star on the final summon, that's predetermined and already baked into these percentages. So how does this all translate into player experience? Let's say you use your tenfold summon voucher. After all, we've received one for free before every new summon showcase so far. Then here are your prospects, rounded slightly to keep things intuitive. 1 in 20 people pull the 5-star focus adventurer, just a little less than 5% in actuality. Likewise, around 1 in 20 pull the 5-star focus dragon, and 1 in 10 people pull a 5-star focus worm print, so around 10% get either of the 2 worm prints. These chances aren't great, but they're certainly way better than 0.5 or 1%, and that's because each draw on the tenfold provides an independent chance of summoning whatever it is you're going for. When you broaden the amount of things you'd be happy with, your chances start to look even better. If you want any 5-star, 1 in 3 people pull one, focus or non-focus. If you want any 4 or 5-star focus dragon or adventurer, you've got about a 50-50 shot. If you'd also be happy with a 3-star adventurer, Halloween Edward comes to mind, then you've got over a 60% success rate. And if you just want something at 4-star or 5-star, besides yet another worm print, there's an 80% chance of that. Still, the fact of the matter is, you are unlikely to get a 5-star just by doing a YOLO tenfold summon, and even less likely to get a specific unit like Naveed or Cerberus. Most of the time, you will not. So unless there are 4 stars or 3 stars you also care about, don't do it. Instead, try to save up your Wormite and vouchers to perform multiple tenfold summons at once. Even if you do end up getting lucky with your initial pulls, it's better to be prepared for the worst case scenario. And that's where a crucial mechanic comes in: pity rates. You'll know of this if you play other gachas, but essentially, the more summons you do without a 5-star, the higher your chances of pulling one are. In Dragalia Lost, pity rates reset each showcase and work like this. Every 10 summons you do without a 5-star, your chance of a 5-star increases by 0.5 percentage points, split evenly among focus and non-focus, so 0.25 each, then split among adventurers, dragons, and worm prints. Nothing occurs at intermediate amounts of summoning, so you really need to pull in batches of 10 to take advantage. And if you go 100 summons without a single 5-star, somehow, Dragalia Lost also has an ultimate automatic pity breaker. Your next single summon is guaranteed to be a 5-star, or your next tenfold is guaranteed to have both a 5-star and a 4-star. Being able to do multiple tenfold summons in a row and take advantage of pity rates is critical to summoning smartly in Dragalia Lost. The second table helps illustrate why. For every successive tenfold you perform, your chances of at least getting one 5-star increase greatly. We're talking nearly a 60% chance by your second tenfold, and over a 90% chance by your fifth tenfold. You can also see how there are diminishing returns. The 11th tenfold is where the automatic 5-star pity breaker would kick in, but it's extremely unlikely you'd actually reach that point. So if you save your Wormite, you can frequently get a 5-star as new summon showcases release. 7,500 is a sweet spot in my view, since you have a 9 in 10 chance of getting at least one 5-star with that much saved up. My rough estimate is that there is over 30,000 Wormite in the game, counting event rewards and login bonuses so far, plus a half a dozen tenfold vouchers and 24 single vouchers. All told, converting those vouchers to Wormite, I think we free-to-play players have gotten around 35,000 Wormite to work with, probably a little bit more. Split that evenly among the 5 showcases seen so far, counting the Wind one releasing tomorrow, and guess what? That's right around 7,500 Wormite per banner. Summon until you get a 5-star, then stop, and save the rest of your Wormite for a rainy day. Now I know what you're thinking. I don't just want any 5-star like another Wormprint I already have, I want a specific 5-star. I want Cerberus or Lily or I don't know, whoever the latest hotness is. And I feel you. I probably want that too. And to be honest, I have gotten pretty lucky in that department. So let's get into the reality of targeting a specific focus unit. And unfortunately, this is where things get pretty bleak. If you're targeting a specific focus 5-star, say Cerberus or Naveed or Jewels of the Sun, this chart shows your percent chance of pulling a single copy by a certain number of tenfold summons. Major credit to Proof on the Dragalia Lost subreddit, who shared a graph which inspired me to write my own code and conduct my own analysis. I'll link to their post, which contains more detail in the description below. My approach is similar to theirs, but I didn't use the same random number seed, so you may notice minuscule differences. Basically, I simulated 10 million people doing tenfold summons until they got a single copy of a specific featured 5-star. A simulation is a bit easier than working with the underlying theoretical distribution, since the pity rate means that successive tenfold summons are not independent and identically distributed. Just to be clear though, that does mean these numbers are approximate. So jargon aside, how do we interpret this chart? The horizontal axis shows the number of tenfolds done, and the vertical one shows the percent chance of hitting the target by that many tenfolds. I've colored a few noteworthy points black, which paint a picture of just how dangerous summoning for a specific 5-star can be. To cross the median of 50% and hence give yourself odds a bit better than a coin flip, you'd need to do 12 tenfold summons. And while I don't usually think in dollar terms as free to play, if you're whaling and buying Diamantium, even at a favorable rate from monthly packs, that's around $360. From there, 91% of the simulations reach the target within 30 tenfolds, so 300 summons total, at a cost of $900. And finally, by 50 tenfolds or $1,500, around 99% had hit the target. Looking at this, the conclusion is pretty obvious. If you really want one particular character, you need to save up a lot, or spend a lot. There really isn't a way of gaming the system in that regard. It's unfortunate for people who love Cygame's other properties, since there have been a few cameos so far, but otherwise, at least Dragalia Lost being a new IP helps limit our attachment to its heroes slightly. Still, if you're hoping for that Christmas version of your husbando, you better start saving now. Even with 45,000 Wormite, you're still looking at a 90% chance for a specific focus 5-star. And if you're hoping to pull a certain 5-star off focus, forget it and wait. The best advice I can provide is that everything from the summoning pool in this game is a want, not a need. I know I often say how 5 stars tend to have better innate kits and stats than 3 stars, but that doesn't mean 3 stars are bad if that's what you have to work with. Take what you want, perhaps elements you're lacking in, for example, and make a plan to get there. If you waste your Wormite, it won't affect your progression in the game, but it will make it costly to get your favorite character when they're featured. Besides that, I'll only add that the more you summon, the less desirable the remaining pool will look. If you keep your summoning plan fixed on 1 5-star per showcase, or save all of your Wormite for seasonals, you will get a lot of new stuff along the way when you do finally pull. But if you wail and get a lot of random units, those units are going to feel like pity breakers as you get lots of copies. And speaking of copies, that's the last piece of analysis I'd like to share. Let's say you want to fully unbind a Gacha Wyrmprint or dragon. How much summoning do you have to do for 5 copies? Well, for 5 stars, the current chart should make it clear that it will cost a ton. All of this was for a single specific 5-star. So can you imagine going for 4 more copies? For 5 stars, you will be much better off buying monthly upgrade packs to obtain sunlight stones and golden keys for unbinding instead of summoning for extra copies. You would end up spending way more trying to actually summon 4 more copies, and it's not even close. But since the upgrade packs aren't a recurring option for 4 stars, let's look at how many summons it would take to fully unbind a focused 4-star, like Phoenix. First of all, if you just want a single Phoenix, you're in luck. The green line to the top left depicts this. Unlike 5 stars, focused 4 stars are actually quite reasonable to target. The majority of players aiming for a focused 4-star would get it within 3 tenfold summons, and over 90% would get it within 10 tenfold summons. This means that if you're on the 7500 Wormite or 1 5-star per showcase plan, you have a pretty good chance to get a focused 4-star. Where things get rough is when trying to fully unbind a focused 4-star dragon or Wyrmprint. There's no pity rate for 4 stars, but this is counterbalanced by them being more common than 5 stars, especially on the final draw of a tenfold. Ultimately, the median and other points I've highlighted are fairly similar to the rates needed to pull a specific focused 5-star. Half of my 10 million simulated players could fully unbind their desired focused 4-star before 17 tenfolds, and the other half needed 17 or more tenfolds to get there. Over 90% could do so by 30 tenfolds, and 99% by 50 tenfolds. One thing I should point out is a common mistake in interpreting data like this. When you see 99% at 50, it doesn't mean if you've done 49 tenfolds, then your next tenfold will surely have your target. That's gambler's fallacy, and you just happen to be extremely unlucky. The correct interpretation is that, starting from 0, you have a 99% chance of max unbinding your target within 50 tenfold summons. You'll probably actually hit it sooner, but there's a small 1% chance you won't get there even by 50. All told, max unbinding a 4-star is about as costly as obtaining a specific 5-star, if not a little more costly since it takes longer to reach the median. Both of these are bad ideas as a free-to-play player, unless you've genuinely saved virtually all of the free currency since launch just for that single purpose. However, it is fairly realistic to pull for a specific focus 4-star. So if you really wanted Sanoa or 1 Phoenix, that's a much more reasonable objective, and hopefully that gives you something to target and look forward to. And that about wraps up the analysis part of this video. I know a lot of that was technical and easier said than done, so let's go over a few practical takeaways to help you summon smartly. First of all, save your Wormite as much as you can, especially if you're free to play. Never waste Wormite on stamina refreshes or spend it to revive on a map, unless you're a big spender. Don't buy Smith Worms. They'll make your life easier in the short term, but you'll probably run out of resources to sustain them all long term. And it's very easy to hit max Smithy level with just 2 Smith Worms anyway. The only thing you should spend on is tenfold summons. Don't burn Wormite on single summons either. Second, Set goals for yourself. Maybe it's pulling a copy of a 4-star like Orsum. Maybe it's getting a 5-star to reset your pity rate. Maybe it's saving all your Wormite until spring for your seasonal Eleonora. Whatever it is, stick to it and stop once you reach it. There's no point in burning summons on a showcase where you already got what you wanted. Third, and we just covered this in those charts, it costs a ton for specific 5-stars and to max Unbind anything. For your own sake, it's probably good to avoid this as a goal. But if it is your goal, you are either going to need to save a lot or spend a lot, or get really lucky. Fourth and fifth, summon around the pity rate. If you have single vouchers, save them and use them in batches of 10 before doing tenfolds. This will increase your odds on every draw within those tenfolds, assuming you didn't get a 5-star on your single summons already. Likewise, if you buy the daily deal, you should wait until 10 days have passed until you do any tenfold summoning on a new showcase. As hard as it can be to be patient, this will give you the best chance for success. You can also wait 7 days, then spend 3 single vouchers twice within the showcase's duration. Sixth, for those of you who do want to summon on every showcase and aren't saving for seasonals or to shore up weaker elements, I suggest going in with around 7,500 Wormite or 6,000 Wormite and your free tenfold voucher. You have a 90% chance of getting a 5-star with that amount saved up, and most of the time, you won't even need to use all of that to get a 5-star. You'll have it by your second tenfold summon. Once you do get a 5-star, it's usually better to quit while you're ahead and save that Wormite for later. Finally, one last reminder, the pity rate doesn't carry over. This is why it's generally bad to keep going after getting one 5-star per banner, unless you have enough Wormite to get a second one with high confidence. Otherwise, that extra pity rate you build up will be gone once the next showcase goes live. Alright, and that's all I want to say about summoning, Gacha, and how the math works out in Dragalia Lost. I hope you found this video helpful, as I know we're well into the game at this point. Just remember, it's never too late to start saving your Wormite and put into practice some of these tips. I'd also love to hear what tips and strategies you have for saving and summoning in the comments below. Tomorrow I'll release my review of the next summon showcase, Winds of Hope, which will coincide with my first giveaway. I hope this video and that review help you make a wise decision about summoning, and I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow to check it out. I'll get it posted as soon as I can. Otherwise, thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time.